on the value of divine principle, which I would wish everyone should read the divine principle a few times, actually, to get the depth of it. But it's significant to the whole of mankind. But today is True Children's Day. I'm Reverend Walter Frank Jr., pastor of Family Church of San Diego, chapter of Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. And that's our ideal, is world peace and unification, God's Garden of Eden on earth, where all human beings can find their true potential and their true selves. That's so important. Who are you? Right? Some people say, I never can be, I'm afraid to express my true self, right? Because we live in a world dominated by people who might hurt you if you express who you really are or how you really felt. Isn't that so? Also, many times we ourselves feel like we're lost. We don't know who ourselves are either. Who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing here? Divine principle really helps you understand those things. And ideally, today's sermon will help you as well. Today we're celebrating True Children's Day, which is different than just Children's Day. Lots of groups, lots of people celebrate Children's Day, which you might think True Children's Day is about being nice to little kids. Right? See, well, that's why we have these things, to explain these things to you. Partially true, so you can say, yes, we should really be nice to little kids today. Yes, little kids. But we love our children and believe offering the life elements of love and truth to our children is the foundation for world peace. Children raised in a household of love and truth will ideally become good people who do good to others, right? However, True Children's Day is about true adult children of God. It's about true adult children of God, not just little kids who can play and have fun. We love them. They're sweet, they're innocent, they're loving, they're open, they're trusting, right? Jesus said if you don't turn and become like a little child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So there's an inestimable value in little children. But True Children's Day is about true adult, mature children of God returning love, obedience, and harmony to our heavenly parents whom we call God. Does that make sense? The idea is after we grow up, we have to become loving individuals who first of all know that ourself, who we are, our identity, is a child of God. You don't have to wonder, am I descended from an ape? What am I? I don't know. You should know. I'm a child of God. When you wake up in the morning, who or what am I? I'm a child of God, and I owe allegiance to my parents. I owe love to my parents. Everything I have. When you breathe in the morning, you breathe in that first breath of air. Imagine if you couldn't breathe in that first breath of air. Imagine if there was something wrong with you and you couldn't breathe and you were struggling to breathe and you couldn't find air. How miserable you'd be, right? But nevertheless, air comes to you freely. When you breathe the air, you should think, thank God. God breathed the breath of life into me, and I'm alive. Hey, we should just stop the sermon there and let's go to the park. No, sorry, we have to do more. Okay, in order to understand this, we need to know the nature of God, right? We should know, in order to understand our nature, my nature, your nature, we need to understand the nature of God. So let's study the nature of God a little bit. This is, how many people recognize him? You can just read it right there. So you should get the answer quickly and easily. His name is Max Planck. Max Planck. He's considered the father of modern physics, right? He says, listen to this. He's the one who wrote the book called Quantum Mechanics. Everybody's heard the term quantum mechanics, right? He wrote it. He discovered it and he wrote it. Okay. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. And when he says mind, it's a mind with a capital M. That's God's mind, right? This mind is the matrix of all matter. So what Max Planck is saying, the father of modern physics, and everybody, all the computer scientists in the room studied something from Max Planck, right? Electrons, protons. Max Planck says all matter doesn't exist. You think it exists, but really it's only a matrix of some kind of waveform, and that's controlled by a super intelligent mind called God, right? Max Planck, Nobel laureate in physics, right? Nobel Prize in Physics for his work on the establishment and development of the theory of elementary quanta. Max Planck is universally recognized as the father of modern physics. That's pretty sharp, right? No one thinks I'm the father of modern physics, right? Or nobody in the room is. But Max Planck is. If Max Planck went anywhere in the scientific community, people would bow. Wow, you are the father of modern physics, and I'm your student, right? He formulated one of the most important physical theories of the 20th century, quantum theory. He also contributed to the progress of the theory of relativity and the study of electromagnetic radiation. Planck is a founder of quantum mechanics, right? That makes him like, okay, anyway, we'll talk about this in a second. I'm getting too excited. This is what he says. This is his words to other people. As a physicist, that is, a man who had devoted his whole life to the wholly prosaic science, the exploration of matter, right? The exploration of matter. And, there's materialists who think there's only matter. He said, my job was to study the source of that matter, the essence of matter, and here's what I discovered. No one would surely suspect me of being a fantasist, that is, someone who fantasizes things. And so having studied the atom, I am telling you, there is no matter as such. For all the materialists in the world, here's the father of modern physics. There's no matter. You think we're material, but there's no matter. I'm telling you, the father of modern physics, the founder of quantum mechanics, there's no matter anywhere. He says, all matter arises and persists only due to a force that causes the atomic particles to vibrate, holding them together in the tiniest of solar systems, the atom. Yet in the whole of the universe, there is no force that is either intelligent or eternal, and we must therefore assume that behind this force there is a conscious, intelligent mind or spirit. Again, he used capital mind, capital spirit. So he said, look, we know there's four known forces, right? Weak force, strong force, nuclear forces, gravitational force, electromagnetic energy. He says there are four forces, and none of those forces are responsible for the creation of the world. Right? He says there must be a mind. There must be something behind this. This is the very origin of all matter. Right? This is the very origin of all matter, and he's the one who studies matter more closely than any other human on earth. Clearly, more than any other human on earth. Right? To the question of the observer, do you think that consciousness can be explained in terms of matter? Right? Where does consciousness come from? Where does your spirit come from? Where does your intellect come from? Where does your emotional heart, where does your love come from? Does it come from matter? Okay, who should you ask? Should you ask the fireman down the street? Should you ask your insurance salesman? No, you should ask the most clearly defined expert in understanding what matter is, right? Who would that be? I know. No, it would be, you can ask God, of course, God bless you. But on earth, Max Planck is as close to God as you get. Sorry. So he says, Max Planck replied, no. He says, no, matter cannot make consciousness. No, I'm the guy who created quantum mechanics, and I'm telling you, matter cannot create consciousness. No, I regard consciousness as fundamental, something beyond or before matter, right? I regard matter as a derivative from consciousness. He says, actually, consciousness is what creates matter, not matter creating consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Means we can study matter, and when I go beyond matter down to the tiniest matter, I realize there's a mind, an eternal mind and intellect that created this matter, right? That's something, right? Isn't it? Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing postulates consciousness. Okay, he was cited in 1940. He died in 1947, by the way. His son, by the way, if you ever want to know, his son was killed by the Nazis during World War II for creating a plot to overthrow Hitler. So he lived through that, unfortunately. Anyhow, he says, yet in the whole of the universe there is no force that is either intelligent or eternal. We must therefore assume that behind this force there is a conscious, intelligent mind or spirit. Again, the founder of modern physics. He understood this by studying matter and coming to the conclusion that there is a mind, capital M, and spirit, capital S. This is the very origin of all matter, right? Isn't this what the Bible says? Isn't that what the Genesis says? Isn't that what Jesus teaches? That's what we teach. Everybody teaches. Your mind makes your body get up in the morning. Your body doesn't make your mind get up. Your mind makes your body get up in the morning, right? Your mind controls your body. Your body might be hungry, but you might say, body, I know you're hungry, but sorry, I'm late for school. I got to go to school. You can't eat something right now, body. I must go to school on time, right? Don't you students do that? You skip breakfast all the time because you're late? Anyhow, so the point is mind. Let's keep going. Okay, that's okay. Here's Aristotle's Rules of Rhetoric. How many people read Aristotle's Rules of Rhetoric? What's that?
Public education.
No, I learned that. I learned that early on. Okay, here's one of his first rules. If in rhetoric, right, Aristotle was used to debating. He knew Socrates, right? He knew Plato. He was a student of Plato, Socrates, and then there's Aristotle. He said when we're arguing points back and forth, there should be rules of rhetoric that you should understand. If, for example, one person says A and the other person says B, you should examine their credentials, right? You should examine their credential. That's why in courts right now, in a court where they're trying to figure out if someone's legal or not legal or what's going on, they'll have what they call an expert witness. An expert witness means he's a trained witness with experience. For example, if a policeman says, you ran a red light, and you say, I didn't run a red light, who will the judge believe? The policeman. Why will he believe the policeman? No, that's not true, actually. The law says because the policeman is a trained observer. He's a trained observer, right? If they decide who died, what killed a person, you could say, I think he died because of this, but they won't care about your testimony. They'll care about the coroner's testimony because the coroner is what? He's a trained observer. He's trained to find the truth and say only the truth, right? You're just Joe Blow. What do you know? What do you know about it? Anyhow, so Aristotle's Rules of Rhetoric, which are still in use today, the quality of the witness is really important. If Joe Mama says something, well, who cares? But if Albert Einstein or Max Planck, the father of modern quantum physics, says something, that's significant, right? We would think, whose testimony do you believe? Is the witness an expert? That is a trained observer. We think Max Planck is a trained observer, right? I propose that Max Planck, being the founder of modern physics, author of quantum mechanics, I just said those things, and Nobel Prize-winning scientist, is the foremost witness for the relationship between science and God. That's what I think. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah. Don't just listen to any Joe Blow who writes a book about God or atheism or materials. Don't just listen to anybody. This is the foremost scientist in quantum mechanics and studying the relationship between mind and matter. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. That's why you should listen to him. That's why you should. Anyhow. Divine Principles Study Guide, page 9, says this, which is in complete correlation with Max Planck. Likewise, to know God, we study his works, that is his creation, his role in history. That is why the Apostle Paul said in Romans 1:20, ever since the creation of the world, his invisible nature, namely his eternal power and deity, has been clearly perceived in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. It means that people who don't believe in God don't have an excuse, really. They can say, I don't see God. Max Planck can see God. Max Planck can look at the universe, can look at quantum mechanics, atoms, nuclear forces, gravity, and see God, right? So so St. Paul and Max Planck agree. You can see God, you can find God in nature. You can find God through science, through looking at matter. If you study hard enough, you're going to find God there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Divine Principles Study Guide, page 9 says, man has an invisible mind and a visible body. The invisible mind directs the life of man's visible body, right? Just like I said, you wake up in the morning, you decide, what should I wear? Does your body decide what you wear, or you decide what you wear? Ideally, your mind decides. Thank you very much. This body also resembles man's invisible mind. So man's body is the expression or manifestation of his mind, and you can tell by how people dress. What's going on in their mind. Thank you very much. Therefore, we can say that man's mind is the internal character of man, which makes man's body its external form. Without the directives of the mind, the body of man cannot exist, act, or multiply. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The body of a man is made of physiological cells. And it's the same thing with all things. Animals have an invisible part which gives instinct and a visible body. The mouse's mind tells the body to look for cheese. Then when it finds cheese, it eats the cheese, right? Thank you, mouse, for that demonstration. But animals, we say, have an instinct, and they do things that no one can understand. For example, the plover bird, you know, the plover bird lives in Alaska all summer. In the winter, the plover bird flies from Alaska directly to exactly the place in Hawaii where it lived as a child. How could it do that? You couldn't find Hawaii, could you, without a compass, map, charts? You couldn't find Hawaii, but the plover bird instinctively flies exactly to Florida. The monarch butterfly who lives in the summertime in Canada, every 2 years, flies directly to a place in Mexico where it gives birth to all baby caterpillars who grow up, eat leaves, and then become butterflies, fly back, stop in Texas, then take one more flight in 2 years from now back to Canada. How could a monarch butterfly know that? How can you know where Mexico is?
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably find Mexico from here, right? Just dive south on the 5 and you get to Mexico. But you couldn't find a tree in Mexico, could you? Monarch butterflies can't. It's instinct. It's something in them that is unexplainable by human beings. It's unexplainable. It's instinct, right? We say this animal mind directs the life of the body of the animal. The body of the animal also resembles an invisible animal mind. So the body of an animal is the expression and manifestation of its animal mind. So that's why dogs are dogs.
Yes.
Cats are cats. Anyhow, let's skip that one. Plant also has an invisible part which gives out all the natures of a plant. Right? You can see a plant. Plants actually can move, right?
Yes.
If there's a light here and the plant's here, you'll see all the plant will move to the light, right? If there's, by the way, we know about trees in nature. If there's a poison here, plants will grow over here. They won't go there. So plants have a plant mind. The invisible part is like the animal mind of the plant. And it's called a plant mind by many scientists. Do you know that trees in a forest communicate to each other? They know now. Now, modern science says when, for example, an insect comes in and is eating a tree, it sends out a chemical message. And the other trees breathe this chemical message and understand, there's a bad insect over there, and they begin to put out a toxic poison to keep that insect from biting them.
Which one?
Do you know that? Very interesting. They're studying now. They're realizing that forests, they all talk to each other, not by words. They don't send letters, but by chemical commands. They don't text, thank God. By chemical command, they send messages to the other trees. They don't know how that works. They don't know how flocking works, right? When birds flock, that means when birds fly, you'll see them, they all move like that. It's not like they're not like following the leader. They all suddenly move in this direction and move in that direction, like that to avoid predators, for example. Schools of fish also flock. They don't know how it happens. But all the fish are swimming this way, then they all swim that way, then they all swim that way like that. Nobody knows how do they communicate that. How do they communicate turn left now? Nobody knows. It's plant or animal mind. It's plant or animal mind. Also, molecules, atoms, and particles are also made up of invisible parts and visible parts. The invisible parts are the sources of their inherent directive nature. That is, molecules and atoms somehow understand what they're supposed to do. If you have a proton floating around, which you usually don't, an electron will come and spin around it, right? It's called hydrogen. It's just an automatic process. Why does it do that? Why does it obey all the time? If you mix, anyhow, you guys all took chemistry, so I don't have to explain those things, right? But chemicals always obey the laws. The idea of Brownian movement, the idea of understanding these things in nature, Einstein and Max Planck worked on that idea to understand that there's nothing there. For example, Einstein said, if you drop a drop of oil in water, it spreads out. It spreads out until it's even over the surface of the water. It becomes even. He said, what force is it that makes it be even? Anyway, let's skip that one. So here's what we say. Harmonious give and take action between the mind and body is essential for life and the harmony of life, right? Yes. Your mind and body must be harmonious or you won't work. This is a pattern of all created things. Give and take action between the mind and body equals life. Equals life. Give and take action between the mind and body equals your ability to act. Give and take action between the mind and body creates harmony and multiplication. Does that make sense? We say all beings in nature are in a give and take relationship, a harmonious give and take relationship. All things in nature. And again, I'm going to show this. Oh, so symbiosis. A symbiosis is an evolved interaction. This is from dictionary definition. What's a symbiosis? We say the divine principle says everything lives in a symbiotic relationship. Sym is Greek for the same, biotic is for life. They all live for the sake of each other, right? A symbiosis is an evolved interaction or close living relationship between organisms from different species, usually with benefits to one or both of the individuals involved. And now they're discovering that this happens all the time, more and more, far more often than we thought. And that is, for example, there are various forms of symbiosis. That is, your mind allows your body to grow and reproduce. Your mind is in a symbiotic relationship with your body. Does that make sense? Your mind, if you, ideally, if there's something that's poisonous or looks bad, right, you look in your refrigerator, you wonder, is this good or bad? Your mind says, don't eat it. Stop. Put it down. Don't eat it. This other part of your mind that says, well, it looks tasty. I mean, I'm really hungry, right? That's a conflict between mind and body. Next time you do that, just throw it away for me, thank you, please. Your body allows your mind to grow and thrive, and your mind allows your body to grow and thrive, right? You have give and take a relationship. Your mind wants your body to be better, your body wants your mind to be better. We say all of nature, the term ecology actually means symbiosis, by the way. For example, see these two animals? He's a bird, and he's what is he, Bob Millar? Cape buffalo. They live in a symbiotic relationship because the buffalo protects the bird from other animals coming to buy him, a big massive buffalo, and the bird eats little insects and ticks and things like that off his body. So they have a somewhat, there's different levels of symbiosis, by the way. And here's another one. In the goby and pistol shrimp symbiosis, both animals benefit. This relationship is not parasitic and not commensal. It is mutual. The shrimp builds and maintains a burrow that both animals live in, and the fish offers the shrimp protection from predators. Did you know that? This is under the ocean. So under the ocean, you have this fish and this, what did I say? There's a shrimp. Shrimp, and they protect each other. One digs the hole, and the other goes in there, and they protect each other, feed each other, they take care of each other. These are just two, what we might call dumb animals, right? Nevertheless, they know how to live for, love, and protect one another. And they know that protecting one another allows each one to grow better themselves, right? They're practicing what we would call, in divine principle, living for the sake of others, right? They're living for the sake of the other, and by living for the sake of the other, each one grows, each one benefits. Does that make sense? How about oak trees? Here's a new one. I didn't know that before. But oak trees are symbiotic with what animal? Squirrels. Did you know that? Oak trees are symbiotic with squirrels. Squirrels eat the acorns from there. How does the squirrel help the oak tree? Do you know how? Eating acorns. Bob, do you know how?
Buries the seeds all over and he forgets the food.
And also wolves eat them too. So what happens is the squirrel wants to save up acorns for the winter. So what he does, he makes caches, he collects the acorns and then buries them and then hides them. If he doesn't eat them, then actually he's planting oak trees. He doesn't realize, we don't know that he realizes he's planting oak trees, but squirrels plant oak trees all over, meaning the oak tree will grow to more and more habitats where it couldn't grow by itself. It couldn't go there by itself, but so it feeds the squirrel plants new baby oak trees. Isn't that sort of interesting? We say they're practicing living for the sake of the other. Living for the sake of the other, even though they're just an oak tree and a squirrel. So if we ask, where does that come from? How does the squirrel know? We think the squirrel doesn't know. The oak tree doesn't know. We say there's a mind. This is what Max Planck said. there's a mind in the universe that directs goby fish and shrimps and Cape buffaloes and birds and squirrels and oak trees to live for the sake of the other. We think that's the overarching mind of the universe, says animals and plants live for the sake of other. That's what I like. That, as creator, I like things to live for the sake of the others. Does that make sense? Because that's what's happening. How could they figure it out otherwise? And by the way, we say in the world of nature, in the kingdom of animals and the kingdom of plants are all in a giant symbiosis. Right? You know this, right? You learned this in Biology 101. The animals breathe out carbon dioxide and breathe in oxygen. The plants breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. Plants are constantly purifying the air for animals. Animals are constantly purifying the air for plants. Isn't that interesting? That this mind that Max Planck talked about, and Jesus talked about, and we talk about, created a world where there's symbiosis, where one side lives for the sake of the other. Plants live for the sake of the animals. Animals live for the sake of plants. Isn't that amazing? That's the world we live in. We say that's the mind of God. That's what we've discovered in the modern 21st century is the mind of God. All the planets actually work together, right? They all have a centripetal force that forces them out, and a centrifugal force that forces them out, and a force that holds them in. They work together. They have give and take action to protect all the planets in the solar system. Pluto is a planet, I think. Anyhow. Same thing with galaxies. All these stars, everything works together. We can be safe on this planet because the gravity of all these stars are working together. This is supposedly a picture of the Milky Way, but you can't take a picture of the Milky Way. Anyhow. So I thought when all things are in harmonious give and take action, all things flourish. John Kenny, you're ready to record this? I'm going to show this video. I showed it before, but I really like it a lot, and I'm going to show it again because it makes the point. You ready? Yep. Sounds ready? Everything's ready? This is called How Wolves Change Rivers. It's a beautiful story. It's something, again, nobody in the 20th century understood this. This is 21st century science. So watch this. It's only 4 minutes and 33 seconds. It's wolves. Can you make it louder?
Yeah.
Maybe set the light.
Make sure your system tray is up.
Oh, why don't you plug it in, Patrick, Frank? Plug it in.
Scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others.
See?
Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years. That the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. And here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion, the channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
Isn't that amazing? You know, several reasons why I like that. One is because it makes clear when God says that he created all of creation and creation's good, it's good. Some people think, oh, God made wolves. He must be an evil God because he made wolves with teeth and fangs and they're biting and eating all the time. And it's just a red terror. The world is a red terror, right? It's not true, actually. The wolves allow the health of the deer to increase, bears, foxes, just like you said. So when God says it's good, the world is really good. Every part of the world is really good. Even, by the way, sorry to say, mosquitoes are very good in the world. So what does that mean for true Children's Day in the 21st century? 21st century science tells us there is a creator, right? Both Max Planck, the founder of modern physics, and Jesus Christ, the founder of Christianity, both agree. There's a mind and a heart and a spirit that created the world and guides the world. Has a mind consisting of intellect, love, and will. Then it is the intellect of the will of God that directs the world to be harmonious. So that wolves and plants and everything, when everything works in give and take action as God created, it becomes a beautiful ecosystem where all the animals, all the plants, all the trees, the rivers, the fish in the rivers, the beavers, everything thrives and grows. Is that clear? That should be clear just from looking at modern 21st century nature. Not 20th century science or even 18th century science. 21st century science makes that clear to us, right? So we can say that the pattern of the mind, the order of the mind of the Creator is harmonious give and take action, which allows all things to exist and allows all things to flourish. When we give commands to our children, when we're parents and we give commands to our children, some of you are not parents yet, but when we give commands to our children, don't play in the street, right? We say, don't play in the street, kids. Don't take candy from strangers. Anyhow. Brush your teeth, kids, or we give all these commands to kids. Why do we give those kids those commands? Right? Do your homework, kids. It's of course and foremost for their benefit. Is that true? So first and foremost for their benefit. Eat your vegetables. I know you hate vegetables, but you must eat your vegetables, right? Or all the other things we say. Clean your room. Do all those things, right? But it's also for us because we love them and want them to grow and flourish. When our kids grow and flourish, that makes us happier, right? It's the exact same thing with God, by the way. Even if our kids grow and are better looking than us, we're still happy. If they do more and accomplish more, then we're really proud of them. We're actually happy that our children do better than we do, aren't we? Absolutely, that's right. So this makes sense to me. From both science and religion, we grow to know the mind of God, allowing to understand the great commandment. What's the great commandment? The first great commandment. First great commandment is this. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Why does God give you that commandment? Is it for him? No, it's for you. It's like all the other commands we give our children. It's for you. You need to know who you are. You need to grow up, wake up in the morning and know who you are. And then you need to live your life as if you're a child of God. What's the second great commandment? To love your neighbor as yourself, right? So when you wake up in the morning and you love your wife as yourself. You wake up in the morning, you love your husband as yourself. You wake up in the morning, you love your children as yourself. You love your classmates as yourself. That's the foundation for world peace. This commandment is the foundation for world peace. That's why God gives you that commandment. And that's why this is True Children's Day. You need to become adult children who will recognize the command, appreciate the command, and live by that command. And when you live by that command, you become true children of God, which gives grace to you and grace to God. Does that make sense? Grace to you and grace to God. Reverend Mrs. Moon created the ceremony of True Children's Day with the full knowledge that we are children of God, lost children of God who need to find our way back home, right? And as true children of God, we worship and give thanks to God in a give and take action that honors God and gives us eternal true life. When all things are in harmonious give and take action, all things flourish. When you're in give and take action with God, you will flourish. Your family will flourish, and the world will flourish. Amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, everybody. Short and sweet.